Howdy, I'm John Hart Asher. Today I'm delighted to welcome Teresa Spate, a leader in urban gardening engagement, a compelling author and a philosophical podcaster and insightful garden writer at Cottage in the Court. Native to Washington, D.C., and now tending her own cottage court garden in Maryland, her garden journey led her to recent book, Black Flora, Profiles of Inspiring Black Flower Farmers and Florists. Great to meet you, Terry. How are you doing?
I am absolutely wonderful.
It is absolutely wonderful to have you here. You are a prolific flower writer and speaker. So I wanted to start off with flowers and gardening. Why are they so important to your bliss? And what is communal bliss?
It's important to my bliss because it brings me joy. And right now we need to be uplifted so much in the world. And flowers, that's where it's at.
Where did you get your start in this gardening path?
From my parents. We planted portulacas, cannas, and marigolds every year. That was my mom's thing. And my dad planted my mom a rose garden, and we made bouquets and we put them all throughout the house. So that's where it started, and it just grew from there. I've always been a tomboy, so being outside was my jam, and
well,
it still is.
And I read, your dad really was a powerful force in terms of your influence on getting you a green thumb.
He helped me realize the importance of having a hydrangea. And those green things, I realize now, were arborvitae. And we would have these conversations on the carport, breaking down Latin, the real way you say words and the real way you don't. So my dad and I were very close.
That's
very
wonderful.
Close.
I can definitely say that I'm guilty of speaking horrible Latin, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. What do you really want to see in your own garden?
Color, creative chaos, and joy. That's what my garden speaks to, that, with natives in the front and the back. I'm currently renovating and creating a garden that is personal to me.
Right.
Favorite plants, native plants, and plants that will give back to nature.
When you say a garden that's important to you, can you delve into a little bit? I mean, how do plants speak to you, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
The color that's really, really important to me, and how they can mingle and play well with others, in addition to being low maintenance, because I do have a full-time job. I don't want to be outside always doing maintenance, but I want my garden to always be colorful and always be alive. Being alive means bringing nature in, butterflies, birds.
That's really interesting about low maintenance, because I hear a lot of people talk about that. And I'd love you to clarify, how do you define low maintenance? Because a lot of people interpret that as no maintenance, but that really would cut out a lot of the joy of gardening.
Exactly. Low maintenance to me is planting closely, which minimizes weeds. Using plant material that is xeric or drought tolerant does not mean you never have to water, but the water comes from the heavens. And every once in a while, if you have to add water, I do collect milk jugs, and I use gray water from my shower, from vegetables that I steam. I will use that water when the plants get a little too dry. But otherwise, I've not used my hose in 18 years.
Wow. Well, from the people here in Texas, I'll tell you, that's pretty darn impressive.
Yes.
Well, what inspired your website and blog, Cottage in the Court?
Because I realized that a lot of people were not connecting with nature. Either it was too technical for them, too high maintenance, or they just didn't understand the beast. And I try to be user-friendly in my approach and help people really understand and embrace the beauty that surrounds us. It's so easy to be so busy and overlook it, but when you can stop and go, oh, that Rudbeckia hirta is going to take me from August till almost December, and you don't do anything to it, I've just connected somebody with nature.
Then you started a podcast.
Yes.
It brings your voice of experience and philosophy to us. Why did you decide to go that direction as well?
Because I like to talk. Seriously, so many people think that professionals in horticulture, or even your local garden center, that they're not reachable. They are reachable. They're there to help. So if we have conversations with them and normalize them, then more people will reach out to them.
Okay.
So that's why I do it. That's why I continue to do it. And then also those underknown, unheard voices, I want to bring them to the forefront
Right.
because they're important too.
Absolutely. I don't think there's any plant nerd that I know that won't go on for hours to talk about plants. So they're, plant people are some of your greatest resources. And I always like to say you got to get your brown thumb first before you
That's
get your
right.
green thumb, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are scared of gardening because you might kill a plant or something, but it's a process of learning and experimenting.
And honestly, even the most experienced gardener kills plants.
Absolutely.
You cannot gain the experience of growing without killing something first.
Sure.
So that's the importance. And when we think about the garden has always had a DEI plan. Diversity. How many gardens do you know, even if it's just diversity in leaves, the garden has always had this plan.
Right.
Equity and inclusivity. It is so important that we really recognize that that was a roadmap for how we should be in life.
I love it. That is really wonderful. That's the philosopher coming out right there. I absolutely love that. Well, with all that free time on your hands that you've had, because you obviously hadn't been doing stuff. I'm joking. But you decided then to write 2 books. So why did you want to co-author The Urban Garden about small spaces and gardening on a budget?
We've got so many new gardeners now.
Right.
And a lot of people will say, oh, gardening is so expensive. It doesn't have to be. Save your seeds, collect seeds, share seeds. And, oh, I only have a balcony. You can have container plants. Oh, I don't know if I want to dig in my ground. Build a raised bed. It
Right.
doesn't cost a lot of money. And if you use perennials, you're saving money because that one cluster of seeds comes back year after year after year.
Sure.
And then you add annuals for long-term color. But you have this wonderful symphony of plant material that, in my opinion, it sings to us every day.
I love that. Sings to us every day. Well, and I think with herbaceous material, so forbs or wildflowers and grasses, people think about trees. I plant a tree and then it's going to give to me. They can see that as a long-term vision. But just like you're mentioning, though, the perennials, that's a gift that comes back every year and improves just like a tree increases in stature.
Yes.
This is one that increases in color, might spread a bit,
Right.
move it around. So you also wrote Black Flora, and it's a portrayal of African American and indigenous floral designers, artists, and slow flower farmers. Why and what was important to honor the local, regional, and those historical roots in that text?
It was important because we don't hear about them. When you think about it, you hear about a lot of flower farmers, but they're not people of color.
Right.
So we've had this thing going on, but no one's ever heard about it. We've missed opportunities, and it was important to bring it to the forefront. One of my editor, Deborah Prinzing, she was the one that said, Terry, let's do this project together. And I jumped at the opportunity because to elevate our voices is important. To let people know that we're not a monolith is important.
Sure.
So I was more than happy to share this.
Tell us about a diversity of stories, because I know you have chapters that really cover how many people?
25.
25.
Yeah, and everyone had their place of importance. Everyone, I like to say the flowers found them. Whether it was through the loss of a parent, whether it was through choosing a career, the flowers found each and every one of the people here. Or they wanted to connect with their ancestry, which in another way,
Sure.
the seeds were sown before them,
Sure.
and they just cultivated that gift of being a seedling and made it their reality. That's powerful.
Absolutely. Well, I know in the intro in your book, I really appreciated the sense of, I believe the quote was, and I hope I'm not going to mess this up, but we ain't new to this, but we're
Right.
true to this.
Exactly.
And the story about plantations in the South going down, and yet the slaves there harvesting that material and then creating heirloom gardens from that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's really amazing.
Well, when you think about it, to me, and I just cannot get this out of my mind, I went to Sodderly Plantation in Southern Maryland, and I went down to the waterside, And I just had to really imagine getting off out of the hull of a boat, dark, damp, definitely not great conditions,
No.
wasn't a cruise ship.
No.
You get off this boat and you are expected to know the language, what people are telling you that you've never heard before. You're expected to grow in soil that you've never grown in before. And then there's the weather you've never experienced before. And somehow we made it happen. That is powerful to me. And I remember sitting by that waterside and crying because it was like, wow, we got this. We have this. We know this. It's in our DNA. And we made it work. Somebody had the common sense to put a black eyed pea in their hair. Someone got a sweet potato over here. I mean, okra seeds. There are things that we figured out we might need this at some point. We did it, and we're still here. To me, that's an amazing story.
I think it's one of the most powerful stories. That's absolutely amazing. What resonated with you to tell these other people's stories? I know you've talked about the DEI in terms of the garden, but why was it important for you to include this diaspora of storytelling and personal experience with gardening?
Because we've not heard it before. This is long overdue. And we deserve the opportunities and the chance to tell our stories like everyone else does. So the impact that this has had on so many lives of the people that are in the book, several of them are coming home, as I call it. They're going back to family land. One couple, the Cottons, they're just my heart. They have decided they don't want, what a lot of young people want. They don't want the 4-car garage. They don't want the big house. They are growing with their children at their feet, just like our ancestors did. And they're making a living out of it, and they're happy. That's amazing.
Wow. Well, I want to read a quote, if I can, from your book that I really found truly moving. And you're talking about your journey to maturity, where you say, "Now I'm beginning to bloom, and as I unfurl, each petal is different. Each experience adds fullness to life." And that really just moved me from a sense of, gardening isn't just, I think a lot of people see it as an activity you're doing, but I think what your book and experience bring to it is it's that interaction. It's that chance for us to reconnect with the land.
Yeah, gardening grounds me. I am at a loss when I'm not touching the soil. And I realized that the older I got, my dad, I wanted to be an archaeologist. And my dad was like, "Oh no, you should be a secretary." But he was old school at the time.
Sure.
But I always knew I wanted to be connected with the earth. And the more connectivity I had with the earth, I wanted to share that. And I still want to share that because it's important for our next. Our children are our next. If they don't understand it now, if they don't get it now in a user-friendly way, we're going to be doomed, pretty much. And they're going to go in a different direction. And it's meaningful for them to connect because it's going to ground them as well. Grounding is so important.
Gardening is perceived as sort of a old person thing a lot. I mean, I'm certainly not super young at this point in my life, but it's something that is relevant to you as soon as you come on this earth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you give a child a seed, you've given them a gift. And that gift, they can choose to use it now or later. My dad and I would have wonderful conversations about plant material on the carport. My sister was like, it's time to go eat now, Dad. But when my dad passed, my sister's garden now is ridiculous. She cannot buy any more hydrangeas because she's gone hydrangea crazy. But whether you get it now or later, it really is in our DNA, for real. And gardening, it's a calming factor. Gardening is a healer, but you don't know it unless you try it.
Well, Terry, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and your prolific gardening life to come here and speak with us today on Central Texas Gardener. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.